You're on vacation in Florida and that little devil whispers into your ear, "Come on, it's just a $15 souvenir. What's the worst that can happen?" You don't live here, but this is what you don't realize. Stealing that $15 souvenir can turn into a $15,000 legal nightmare that follows you home. Here are some of the questions that I get a lot from clients who are tourists when they come to Florida and get into trouble. "I accidentally walked out of the gift shop without paying. Now I've got this court date. I'm terrified. Is this going to ruin my life? Does Florida really treat tourists the same as local?" Hi, I'm Matthew Konecky, and if you're facing a shoplifting charge because you are in Florida on vacation, this video could help your future. Now let's talk about what Florida law actually says. Under Florida Statute 812-014, theft happens when you knowingly obtain or use property of another with the intent to deprive them of their property. Now here's what people don't realize. Intent is everything. Prosecutors often assume intent is based on your actions. Florida breaks theft into two main categories: petty theft, that's property value under $750, and grand theft, which is over $750. Grand theft is, we're talking about a felony with potential prison time. But let's be honest, most tourists aren't stealing expensive items. They're dealing with souvenirs, sunscreen, maybe snacks. But even that $20 t-shirt can create serious problems. I hear all the time, "Can't they just let me pay for it and go home? I live out of state. How can Florida courts make me come back?" This was just a misunderstanding. The reality is Florida sees thousands of shoplifting cases each year, and a huge percentage of them involve tourists. The store security knows this, the police know this, and prosecutors definitely know this. Some stores even have a zero tolerance policy because they deal with it so much. Now let's talk about what happens when you get caught. First, store security might detain you and they call the police. You can get arrested, fingerprint, booked into jail, even for a small item. And I know that's not how you plan to spend your vacation. Some of the questions that I get about these situations or comments that I hear is that I'm a parent and I was distracted trying to find my kids. I was scanning items that didn't go through. Or if an elderly tourist say that the medication they took affected their judgment and they forgot about something. Sometimes it's a language barrier where they don't understand. Spring breaker who made a stupid decision after drinking. That happens a lot. But what's interesting is intent matters. Florida courts see these explanations constantly and prosecutors aren't immune to it just because you're visiting. They need proof that this was not accidental and not just your word. Being a tourist can also create a special problem that you may not have thought about. First, if you're here visiting and you get arrested, you'll have to come back for a Florida court date. Second, you could get placed on a bond restriction that can literally prevent you from leaving Florida until your case resolves. Third, you don't know the local system. You don't know which prosecutor are reasonable, which judges are tough, and what diversion programs might be available. Fourth, you're under pressure to resolve this quickly so you can get back home, but rushing into a bad plea deal can haunt you forever. So I've been asked, "Matthew, it's just a misdemeanor. How bad can the consequences be?" And that's a great question. Here's what most people don't consider. Even a misdemeanor conviction of theft creates a permanent record. When you apply for jobs, they ask about conviction. When you rent an apartment, landlords do background checks. Professional license and college applications, volunteering at your kids' schools, theft convictions follow you. It's called a crime of moral turpitude. And even if you just pay for it and you're done and you get time served, that consequence could be there forever because once you're convicted, you're unable to expunge a case like this in Florida. Some employers have zero tolerance for theft convictions because they involve dishonesty. So you could be disqualified from future employment in your own job or even get fired as a result of that. And most importantly, for non-citizens, even petty theft can trigger immigration consequences. Now, what people don't realize about defending these cases, lack of intent is huge. So if you can prove that it was accidental, that's a complete defense. Mistaken identity works when the store security grabbed the wrong person, and medical conditions can have effect and explain your behavior. And language barriers create reasonable doubt intent as well. But what's the most important thing? Don't handle this yourself. Florida prosecutors see tourists every day who walk in without lawyers and accept whatever plea deal is offered and leave with a conviction that could be avoided. I've seen many cases where cases are dismissed because the attorneys advocate for their client when the tourists think it was hopeless. So here's what not to do. Ignoring this and not coming to court. Because Florida will issue a warrant. Certainly don't post about it on social media, because if the case is big enough, a prosecutor could look at your page and see any kind of the incriminating messages that you post. And also, don't accept the first plea deal without exploring any kind of alternatives. And don't assume that if it's just a misdemeanor, it's not serious. If you're facing a shoplifting charge in Florida, don't do it alone. Time is critical. The sooner that you can get proper help, the better options that you have. Now, we've handled tourist cases all the time, and we understand the unique challenges that you're facing and can often resolve your case without you having to come back to Florida. You can download our guide, My Loved One's Been Arrested, What's Next? The link is in the description. It explains exactly what to expect, the criminal justice process in Florida, and how to protect yourself. So if you want to know more about the criminal process for out-of-state tourists, check out this video here.